Hey guys, Bugcat7 here. Okay, it is Sunday, January 12th, 2020, and I want to thank you for visiting the Stonewall Research channel here on YouTube. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. Alright guys, well we're going to continue looking at the quote-unquote giants, or large hominids, as I like to call them, state by state, and next up in the list is Iowa. And I've gone through all the accounts on Iowa, and they are very interesting. We're going to talk about them. We're going to go through them. But as usual, I come across one of particular interest to me, and I think is noteworthy, and I had to single it out. So actually, it's a newspaper article with a follow-up article, so that's even more interesting as well. But it's about this site by this lake in Iowa called Okoboji or Okoboji, or I'm not even sure how the pronunciation goes, but there's no trace of this mound anymore. So it's a lost mound. It was a famous mound, but apparently it doesn't exist anymore, and there's no telling what may have happened to it because there doesn't appear to be any history on it. And even though all this professional sort of official archaeology was done there, there's no trace of that anymore either, or any artifacts or anything else. Oh, it should just sound amazing to me. But before I get to that, just a couple of announcements. I just watched Chuck CFAP's video on Lovelock Cave, Red Hair Giants, fact or fiction, or in between. And it's a standard fare article from some online magazine. I've read a number of these. I've gone through it. I've read through all this stuff a million times. And, Chuck more or less comes out at the end of it saying, and a good place to be as far as I'm concerned, is that the truth really lies somewhere in between. And if you have been following my channel, you're going to know that I did a video, and you want to learn really about the truth about the Lovelock Cave, okay? The key to it is this video here, all right? The Towers of Silence, the Galena people, okay? A people of a different body type, a different morphology, a different phenotype, okay? Similar to that of the Lovelock Cave people, who the Humboldt Museum that houses all the artifacts there. Okay, what was left of them? There wasn't a lot. Most of the artifacts were destroyed by guano miners. And the skeletal remains as well, just crumble into pieces. They just a miracle they put any of it back together. They say they were slightly more robust. That's what the Humboldt Museum, and that's what this woman that's referred to in the article. She's the official mouthpiece for, I guess archaeology, or associated with whatever university or organization she's associated with. Okay, she's the official mouthpiece. Slightly more robust is their stupid euphemism for anybody who has a brain in their head knows that slightly more robust means bigger, okay? Bigger, all right? So this is what the people at Galena Canyon were about, okay? And C.W. Saram in his book, and that's why the title of this is The Towers of Silence, okay? It's sarcasm, okay? Sarcastic, okay? C.W. Strand is being sarcastic about it because he felt it was suppressed archaeology, okay? And he didn't like that, all right? So he brought us the story in his book, The First American, which won so many awards, and you can win a C.W. Saram award in archaeology. It's like some rare archaeology award. He's one of the first people to bring archaeology because that's what his interest was, okay? He couldn't be explicit in the book in 1971 when it was published because he's an ex-Nazi living in America. He worked for the Ministry of Propaganda for the Nazis, but he also was a famous journalist and the editor of Der Spiegel. Okay, so his interest was archaeology, and if anybody knew propaganda, he did. Okay, so he didn't felt that this shouldn't be suppressed. These people were exterminated. All right, there was a genocide. This is not a pleasant story. This is not a politically correct story about the Native American people, because if they're engaged in genocide, this just gives the other side fodder. Okay, you see, one extreme side is just as delusional as the other, okay? And as Chuck says, the truth lies somewhere in between, so does the rational view of this, okay? He gives us a clue. He's trying to give us a hint in this book, a clue, as to what the real story is about what happened to all the peoples in this area. The whole giant genocide story. This is the key, people. If you haven't seen my video on the Towers of Silence, 500 towers in the middle of the desert in New Mexico that nobody knows about. 25 and 30-foot towers. Okay? Amazing castles, torreons, all right, built on finely cut slabs of giant slabs of limestone as bases, all right, and nobody knows about it. Talk about ancient America, all right, in a huge site, all right. These people were exterminated, apparently, evidence shows, by the Native American people, okay. That's not a politically correct story. That's why it had to be buried. All right? Nobody can continue on with this thread. They want people to think about cannibalism and all this kind of stuff. And they want the people to think and sort of tone it down by saying they're slightly more robust, which is laughable. Okay? After you see the composite drawings of some of these people that they consider large hominids living back then, it's laughable. Okay? And just a couple more announcements, guys. Phil from the Ancient Alternative View produced video, just catching up now, guys. So you got to understand that, in the food service industry like I'm in, okay, I work 6 days a week. You work like a racehorse all day long, and at the very end of it, you have to come up with the most energy you had all day, even though you're exhausted. Okay, we got to clean up the whole joint. Everybody wants to get out of there. So, I have very little time. Let's do my own research. I'm trying to catch up with comments and videos. I apologize to anybody, but Phil, I knew he was a super genius kind of guy, but he's an absolute genius. He has figured out, in my opinion, what the nubs represent in the walls, the stone constructions, the megalithic stone constructions around the world, okay? There's some sort of language, maybe a stonemason's language, maybe an engineering language, or maybe a general language, maybe both. Okay, maybe I left a couple of comments. I don't know if Bill will get to them or not, but I said, is it binary? Maybe it's binary. Maybe it's a musical code, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, or Sherlock Holmes with the music boxes, where the tones are slightly different in the boxes or what. This all can be a language too, folks. So, I don't know, but Phil is an absolute genius, and you haven't seen this video, go immediately there and watch it. I'm going to put a link to it at the end of this video. Phil is an absolute genius, and this is just part one, okay? He's got 2 parts going, and I strongly suspected it, and so did Dr. Robert Schoch. Somebody's a pretty noteworthy person, so check that out. Unbelievable, Phil. Amazing. Congratulations. You figured something out that I think a lot of people who looked at it just weren't getting it. And I think, through various discussions, Phil used his brain and came to this conclusion. So, and a third announcement is here on my group page that I started on Facebook. I just started it. Come there and join it. This, one of the group members here, Christopher Ryan from California, and he was interested in the mysterious stone walls in California, and he sent me these amazing pictures, 12 pictures from California. And if you want to see them, I highly suggest you join this group. I'm going to put a link to it in the description here. So join up, check out the pictures, because I'm going to get a lot of this stuff, guys, on my Facebook page there. And I can repost my old research videos from Mallory, because they have hardly any views. I can't see why. Just amazing stuff in Mallory there among the stone walls. So I get a chance to, to republish. You can't really do that on YouTube. It's ridiculous. You have them in your list. It's just, you can refer back to it, but, a lot of people don't watch it, but you should. And I'm going to be reposting even my earliest ones where I'm running through there like a maniac trying to get, all of my cameras, because all my original videos and pictures were destroyed by Windows 10 update, blue screen result. Okay, so let's get to this article here. Let's see if I can get through it quickly for you. I'd like to complete it. And it's just very interesting what's going on here. You see some early archaeology being done, some very good archaeology, which is surprising for this time. But you can see some care was taken, and the account seems to be official. Okay, by this Dr. Duran J.H. Ward is sort of dispatched to this lost mound at Okoboji, whatever it's called. So let's read it. Bones of giant warriors on Earth, probably killed in battle. Dr. Duran J.H. Ward has returned to Iowa City, USA from Okoboji, where he has been excavating in the famous Okoboji Mound, which was discovered and partially explored last summer. Dr. Ward made many finds which will be of the greatest importance to the scientific world. 6 men were employed for a week in excavating the mound, removing 5,400 cubic feet of clay. The mound was 54 feet in diameter, 6 feet deep, and 30 feet across the top. It was built by installments as there were several strata. The mound has contained more than 100 skeletons. Dr. Ward says he found the remains of 28 men, most of them in an excellent state of preservation. The skeletons were of different racial types. Those on the lowest level were the best preserved, being taken from a depth of 6.5 feet. These were very large men and were powerful in every way. Dr. Ward says that one had the strongest lower jaw he ever saw in any collection. So it's just very interesting that he's saying that the skeletons were of different racial types, and at the lowest level, okay, the very largest ones and powerful in every way. So here again, it seems to me that we have this phenomena occurring where possibly you have the people of high ranking, high status in this society with the very large people, and people of just average height were their subjects or people who followed them or existing within the same society, whatever it was. You have this dynamic going on. This certainly suggests it to me. Just the burials are suggesting that in some ways to me, and this certainly seems to be confirming that notion. As they say about it being in Hopewell, they're coming to that conclusion themselves, mainstream in that archaeological dig there in Indiana. Okay, so this is, should expect that now. Had been killed in battle. In describing it, it said, it was not bestial, but strong in its human aspects. This man and several others had been killed in battle far away. Only their larger bones were buried here, and some of these had been partly eaten away by wolves or other carnivora. Probably all the smaller bones had been devoured. In one case, 10 of the smaller bones had been found and brought home for burial by placing them inside of the skull. Dr. Ward found evidence of the handiwork of the white man in only the recent burials, with the bones were beads and iron tomahawks. Many photographs were taken during the excavation. Some of these show the remains in their position after being uncovered and brushed before disturbing. Every discovery was sketched, measured, marked, and accurately located. Dr. Ward will prepare maps and elevations for future lecture work. Skeletons exhumed. Utmost care was taken in exhuming the skeletons. The earth was removed in thin layers, and every shovelful of dirt was looked over. Trowels and smaller instruments were used as soon as any object was discovered. The most fragile bones were coated with a preservative varnish as soon as possible. The work roused great interest in those living near Okoboji. Visitors came by the hundred every day, and their questions were infinite. Dr. Ward hopes that the State Historical Society, the Anthropological Association, and the University of Iowa will provide for the exhibit for these relics of remote people. The general public has an interest in them, quote unquote, says Dr. Ward. They teach many lessons, and these shall be coordinated as soon as possible. It will take cooperation to do it. There is need of the work of an anatomist, chemist, historians, archaeologists, and anthropologists. The data are complicated, but the lessons will be simple and enchanting. The remains which have been taken from the mound, when mounted, arranged, and accompanied by photos and charts, will prove the most instructive to the people of Iowa. Well, it's not going to prove most instructive to people of Iowa because it ain't there anymore, and none of these things can be found, none of the artifacts, none of the skeletal remains. The mound is gone, this famous mound. Where did all the data go? At the very least, if they never agreed with anything this guy said, the data, the measurements, etc., what could be wrong with retaining that? Okay? It's all gone, folks. Buried. All right? Suppressed, as C.W. Saram would say. Suppressed. All right? And here's a follow-up article sometime later. That was 1905. I believe. I don't know. It says it somewhere. Oh. Evening News. Saturday, 4th February, 1905. A strange people, Algonquins, the prehistoric race of Iowa, which I find so very interesting, why they determine it's Algonquins, because it's based on something. New mound at Okoboji, expected to throw much light on the character of this giant race. Discoveries that have swept away traditions of early Iowa and prefaced ancient history of the state with an epic lost in mystery until the explorer's spade uncovered relics of an unknown race in a mound at Okoboji are to be supplemented with systematic ethnological research. Fred and Alan Pearsons of Cedar Rapids will this summer pursue further the exploration they began last September. Eminent ethnologists declare that the ancient history of Iowa is to be rewritten, as relics taken from the mounds give evidence of a race unknown to tradition or lore of the state. New light will be thrown on the mystery of the early ages of Iowa, or Iowa by the investigations now at hand. Ancient Algonquins. That northern Iowa was inhabited by the Algonquins centuries ago is the conclusion formed by the ethnologist in light of recent discoveries. History has it that this race had never touched the shores of Spirit Lake and Okoboji, and attributed the presence of the mounds to other tribes who had erected them for lookouts. But it has remained for the explorer to overthrow legends and tradition and to resurrect relics of an epoch hitherto unknown to writers of ancient Iowa history. Strange and wonderful people. A race of gigantic stature and superior intelligence, skilled in the arts and crafts, such were the ancient Algonquins, civilization on a plane approaching that of the 20th century had been established ages ago near our northern chain of lakes. While the system of government and method of living was no doubt tribal, the relics of the race scattered about in the mounds indicate a high degree of knowledge and skill. Curiously fashioned earthenware, beautifully illuminated with scenes of the woodland, the hunt and chase, and the battlefield. Marvelous creations in copper vases and ornaments, engraved with characters of an unknown language. These are but a few of the remnants picked up in the sepulchre. So they found this sepulchre. Forgotten in tradition. Forgotten in tradition and tribe lore, unremembered in Indian legends and myths, so far back did their existence date. 7 Algonquin kings have slept for ages in a mound on the borders of Spirit Lake. From acorns scattered on the mound, great oaks have grown, and from their seed other trees have sprung. Fossil remains on a hill tell of a glacial epoch that followed, and other physical changes on the Earth's surface, probably the Velikovsky event. And now, ages afterwards, remnants of the ancient race are returned from the unknown, and its attainments engrossed upon the pages of history. Sepulchre of royalty, grouped around a central monument. This is very unique and very interesting. Grouped around a central monument of granite were found in a mound the remains of 7 men, a woman, and a child. That they were royal personages was evidenced by rich attire and badges of office, such as scepter and wands, firmly held in the mummified hands. Glittering ornaments, copper bracelets, and bright beads bedecked the remains. The baby held in tight embrace a gaily dressed doll, and by its side were trinkets that delight childish fancy. The heads were firmly bound to the monument with thick strips of tan bark, and at the foot of each mummy erected a memorial slab. When the covering was removed and light and air admitted, the remains crumbled into dust. So it's a little hard to get to these remains in a chamber to coat them with anything if you're going to release air in there. If I was to do that today, I would drill a hole in there, look around with a camera, and then pump some sort of preservative in there before, the whole thing became open to the air. Funeral rites and ceremonies. Beneath the tangled undergrowth, so far under the surface that its presence was not revealed until excavation began, a beaten path encircled the exterior of the mound. The track was worn smooth from travel and footprints visible in the soil. At regular intervals, ethnologists believe the tribe in religious observance walked in a solemn procession around the mound, chanting their memorials to the departed royalty. Year after year and century after century, these rites and ceremonies were observed, and the deep track in the mound bears out such a theory. I don't think so. I think it's probably more or less one of these barrow-type mounds, a bow barrow, or, one of these barrow types, because they have that design. And all of these mounds have been tamped down so hard that they're as hard as stone. It's just earth, a lot of it, and with stone mix and clay and everything else. That's why the people at Cahokia couldn't rebuild the mound. They just packed it with earth and hoped it was going to stay in the western part of it that was destroyed in some cataclysm in the past, probably in the 1300s or 1200s. Okay, but they couldn't repair it right because they weren't the ones who built it. This is an interesting take on this thing I find very curious. Drifted to Mexico, although the link connecting these ancients with the Algonquin related to our history is completely lost, it is